So we'll just kind of go over like each day at ARC and like what we thought about each day and like what we took away from it and stuff. Just kind of chat about it. I know it was over like a month ago now, but. Andrew, you kind of want to get into it?
Sure. All right. Well, on this episode, we're going to be talking about the Aerial Rescue Challenge. That's the ARC challenge that was up in Washington. But before we get too far into it, I'm Andrew.
Jamie.
Charles.
Dan.
And Justin.
Awesome. Well, you guys were all there competing. I was not. So I'm just going to sit back and listen to what you guys have to say.
Yeah, it was fun. It was, we haven't had competitions here in the PNW for like 2 summers, you know, I really missed them. So we'll just start talking about the first day, like right when we showed up for gear check. Even for me, that was cool just to like see all those familiar faces again and just feel the vibe of the competition. I really missed it. And we just got back from NAOM, so we got a little more of that. Now we got to wait till next summer and hope we got some more of that.
Yeah.
Did you guys take any way? Well, you're a new competitor. That was your first ever competition. Like, do you have any thoughts on the gear check process or anything like that?
Not really.
Yeah.
It was pretty much what I expected.
Yeah. No DQs.
No.
Yeah.
It was a lot different than how they usually perform them at ISA.
Yeah.
It was a little bit more lax, but that might have just been, you know, the particular person checking gear. I think they had a few different people doing it. Not everybody was kind of doing it the same way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they've relaxed a little bit on the gear check. But yeah, it depends on who checks your gear. Yeah.
That may have had a lot to do with kind of the format of the event and how much of the gear that was provided that we were going to be using anyways, you know?
Yeah, we didn't really use any of our own gear.
we were really expecting it. Yeah, everybody was expecting to use their own stuff a lot more, I think, than they actually did. So
that's what I was going to say about the competition. The number one thing I would say was everything that you know about tree climbing doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Yes, you use access, but besides that, I was shocked by how different it was.
Yeah.
And,
so
you know, it was cool to be exposed to a whole different world.
Yeah.
Of rope access.
Yeah, it's definitely a different beast. Yeah.
I'll do my Andrew impression here, and
we should get some context.
I should lay out what ARC was. So it's the Aerial Rescue Challenge put on by Wesper. I think it was kind of Dave Stice's, came from the mind of Dave Stice. And what it does is it blends tree work with rope access stuff, right?
Sprat.
So we do, sprat. And so basically what that means is we're using a lot of like descenders and ascenders, and you're backed up by the ASAP, that like fall protection, kind of just training us in a different way to like think about rescues, I guess. Just adding more tools to our arsenal. But it was 3 days of, well, Dave said he tricked us into 3 days of training by telling us it's a competition, right? First day was training until, the afternoon. Then we got through one event, and then the next day was a full day of events, and then the Masters Challenge was on the last day. So I guess we could start talking about the trainings that happened on that first day.
Yeah, I was happy about the training because I don't know that sprat stuff. They do professional rope access, towers, cranes, water towers, all that stuff, windmills,
oil rigs.
Yeah, all that stuff. So it's whole industrial rope work that I'm not familiar with other than trees. And so it was good training for me for that. And it's totally, like I said, a different beast. And I like the training. I like the fact that I was worried that we just get a little bit of training and then get thrown into a competition. And there's like two different kinds of people there, people that know that stuff and people who don't. And those people are really in the competition. The rest of us are kind of learning. Yeah. But it was nice that as soon as we hopped into one of the competitions, soon as the teachers realized that we really didn't know what we're doing, then they switched to teaching mode. It's like, okay, these guys, we're just going to teach them. We're going to teach them how to back things up, everything backed up and all that stuff. So it ended up being just 3 days of teaching for me, actually.
No, 100%. And all the teachers were super, super nice about it and didn't act
they're totally great.
Dumb for not knowing. They totally understood. And I appreciate, like Dan was saying, that they didn't treat it like a competition as soon as they realized that you didn't know what you were doing.
So how many people that were there were tree people compared to people that worked in other industries?
I would say 95% tree people.
Okay, wow.
If I had to guess.
Yeah, it might have been.
Say like 80.
But a lot of them have training in Sprat. It's like this new training that they've been doing.
Yeah.
There were people who knew both sides of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
There were a few people who were primarily tree workers who came into it with some prior knowledge or who had already been like IRATA trained or Sprat trained. But it was a pretty short list of people, I think.
Yeah.
Definitely some people have prepared a little bit more than others. Yeah. Which that information was out there. Like Dave had posted something on the ARC website about being familiar with like Petzl ASAP and the haul line. I can't remember what you call that.
The skate box.
What's the lowering system that is like a doubled rope system, essentially?
The skate block.
Skate block, yeah. He mentioned that too. So.
Yeah. So
had I prepared a little bit better, maybe it wouldn't have been such a surprise.
Yeah.
It was a great.
I think Treepalooza does the same thing. That Treepalooza competition, they do. It's like Sprat type of thing where they're rescuing people out of a plane and stuff. And
oh wow!
So these people have experience from that too.
Oh, nice. I'll have to check that one out.
That's such a good way to do it. In the past, I've learned so much when I've cross-trained with firefighters or, you think about how we got single rope from a lot of the, people reading books about, ascending rocks or, exploring caves or something. So anytime there's so much value in cross-training these different industries with these different styles. How much of that new gear do you think you're going to invest in and kind of bring back into your own kit?
Great question.
Yeah,
ASAP, right?
I left the competition thinking I'm gonna buy this stuff. I'm gonna go to Sprat class. I'm all enthusiastic and stuff, but it's starting to fade a little bit. I'm starting to get back into just tree work.
Yeah.
For me personally, as far as the aerial rescue application, I like to train with what I have in my bag. I think I will buy a rig or an ID at some point, and that would try to train with that. That would be an ideal device to have. But realistically, I left it in the other truck. I've only got the climbing gear that I normally climb with. So that's what I like to train with on the regular, because I'm not going to climb a tree with an ID to prune it,
Yeah, but having a heavy duty descending device like that can be really good to have in your kit. Especially if like I just had the opportunity to do some climbing in the sequoias, and having a device that you can go really long distances on without like heating it up too much, that's important. So I would recommend buying a rig or something like that, because you have more than one purpose for it. But I don't see too much. I don't see myself working off of two lines like that ever, really, when it comes to tree work. I realize standards could change, but they would have to change before I incorporated something like that. So the eject seems like there's not a whole lot of application directly. It's mostly like the descending devices they use, I think, make a lot of sense. And it's less gear, it's more principles, I think, that I enjoyed getting from the whole thing, like the forces, the physics of rigging, physics of some of these rescue scenarios, thinking about the loads that you might be putting on something.
Yeah, for sure. So we'll talk about the trainings that happened that day. The first talk was the like first response kind of thing. And I thought that was awesome, where he really pointed out.
It was Steve Connolly.
Yeah. During patient assessment, it's obvious, right? He's like, you're a human, you know, when something looks wrong with a human, right? You can tell something's wrong, which that was huge for me, because I always thought it was way more complex than that. Like, I need to figure out exactly what's wrong with this person to relay that information to an EMT or whatever. But honestly, if you're telling them what you're seeing, you know, that's good enough. They're the pros in that. They'll figure that out.
And a lot of the people, you know, the people that answer the phone at 911, they know the right questions to ask to figure out what they want. So they'll probably be able to steer you through that conversation pretty well.
Yeah.
That was, I think, one of the most valuable pieces to me. Connolly, Steve, right?
Yeah.
His whole talk and his whole focus on the patient approach made a lot of sense, and it's definitely something that has been missing in the way that I think about aerial rescue, or any kind of like emergency response that you might come into at work. Like really slowing down, thinking, hey, what is the best thing for this person right now? And you're only going to know that if you do the assessment. Like, you might be hurting somebody worse if you're moving them, or you might be unnecessarily taking a risk by moving them, where they could be fine up in the tree. They might be like totally conscious. They might have an injury that doesn't require getting them to the ground right away. And so that's something that you're only going to, or you're going to navigate those situations better if you're performing a thorough and just like common sense patient assessment.
Yeah, that's what it was. Common sense assessment. But we train a lot on how to get them down, or if you are training, that's what you're training on. It's like how to bring them down, not necessarily that patient assessment.
Exactly.
And then the next talk was all about, like you were saying, the vector forces that could be applied with rope angles and stuff. And that was cool. But for me, my brain wasn't fast enough to keep up with all the numbers they were throwing out there. I think it's been a little more simplified for me personally, because they were straight up doing equations on the back of the van.
That was fun.
Yeah.
What's an example of like the forces that we're talking about, like a scenario? Are you talking about if
rope angles and pulleys?
Yeah.
Okay.
Lots of crazy fast math, and one guy in the audience shouting out the answer every time.
Yeah, that was impressive.
Definitely the math.
But it was talking of vector forces, and once you know how they're like magnified greatly as your rope angles, you know, get past a certain point. I can't remember what that kind of point was. What was it? 70 degrees?
So 120 degrees. I think at 120 degrees, I could be wrong about this. We need our fact checkers, right? But I think that's where it equals 1, right? Like, so if you had 180 degrees, the rope going up through block, the force at your anchor is going to be basically 2 times what, you know, you'll have a load on one side, load on the other, and they're equal. So you take 100 pounds and 100 pounds, and it actually equals 200 pounds at the anchor. As you start to pull those angles out from each other, and you got it all the way up to 108 or 120 degrees, I think that then it would actually be like the force on one end of the line is the same as the force of the anchor. It's like a 1-to-1 at that point.
Yeah. But then it also
getting worse as you get go higher from there. Yeah.
And it changes the angle of pull also, because this sounds a lot of like the tree stuff webinar we watched with Taylor Hamill. in his basement? He was talking about this a lot of the same stuff,
It
right?
was. Yep.
Okay.
Totally.
Okay.
That's a good webinar to like understand what we're talking about. And he really puts vector forces in basic terms that someone like me and Andrew can understand.
Yeah.
Better the angle, the better.
Yes.
Less angle, the forces really increase, and then the more angle you can get, the better. Yeah.
Yeah, and they're talking rescue scenarios with that, but that just applies to rigging in a tree, like
everything in the tree.
Yeah. So after all those talks, I think we had some lunch or something, but then it was time for our first event, which I thought was cool. It was like my favorite event there, I think, which is we ascended the climbers line below them, kind of leapfrogged them, set up a mechanical advantage to lift them out of their system and lower them onto ours. So we did a pickoff with either a Petzl ID or a rig, which I thought was interesting because I remember seeing a webinar where you could only do pickoffs with a 2-person load rated device, right? And the ISC D4 was one of those. But we learned you could do it with added friction. So we had from the ID or the rig, carabiner on our harness. So the tail would come down there and you'd hold it up like that. And that extra friction was enough to lower 2 people on. I thought that one was huge. And we did pretty good on that one.
Yeah.
I think Dan was up first.
That's the one we did okay on. Yeah, that was most like what we're used to.
Yeah.
Yeah. We learned.
No.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
I like that one where they were teaching us, like we had the slide line coming out. Maybe I'm jumping ahead.
Yeah, we'll get to that one, the work climb or that was like the team
team challenge. Yeah.
But
go ahead.
Ascending a climber's line below them is something I'd always been curious about. And if the anchor's good, the rope's good, if you're able to verify all that, it's a pretty sweet way to get up there, especially if they're out in like open space. They've taken a redirect and they're
super efficient.
Yeah, it's a trail right to them. Yeah.
For the right situation. I think that's everything with aerial rescue is like, it has to be that situation. And you've had to verify all the variables.
Yeah.
Before you proceed with.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Any other takeaways from that one?
Well, they said what they ding us on. We didn't do a much assessment of the tree was one of the things they dinged us on.
I think we did fully walk around the tree. Like they wanted to physically see us do that.
Yeah, but there were ferns in the way. I mean, come on. We would have to step through the ferns. It was the like work zone area they had cordoned off there was kind of narrow on one side of the tree. So I know, like, personally, that was part of why I didn't do it. I was like, oh, that looks tight over there, but that's kind of a funny little detail. Should have just walked all the way around.
Kind of cool how they set it up. So there was 4 of us on the team and they gave us a certain amount of time to do it. I can't remember what it was, like 20 minutes or something. And Dan was the first to go. So however fast Dan could do the rescue, whatever time was remaining, we could get other people through for points, right?
Okay.
But if Dan
I think it was 20.
That's it,
Yeah.
We were able to get 3 of us through. Which was pretty cool. One team, I think, like Noel's got all 4. Yeah. I liked that one the most because I feel like that I learned a lot from that. Being able to ascend, below them, leapfrog, pick them off, bring them down. That's an awesome way to get into the tree and start your rescue if you can, right?
Yeah.
And then there was the cross haul.
Foreign equipment. That was the one. Foreign equipment.
Yeah,
for sure. Orientation, right? That was one of the challenges. Orientation of the Petzl ASAP.
Yep.
ASAP.
And this is also one of those training situations where they did a demonstration of this particular event for us as part of the training. And that was to help familiarize us with the gear. But I know personally, I felt like I still didn't understand everything I was looking at. Mostly it came down to the ASAP kind of being a foreign component in that system. Otherwise, it would have been a fairly straightforward system. You had a friction device, a rope going up to a block, line coming back down, being tied to a load, and then the identical thing on the other side from a different anchor. The whole idea being that you can move this load back and forth. And so then there's also a hauling component to that system too, which you would add in.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah. So what the event was, just for people that weren't there, was there was a big bucket of concrete. So, probably 100 pounds or something like that. And the idea was to pick up the concrete, lift it up and over like a sports tent, and without touching the tent, without letting ropes touch the tent, and set it down on the other side of the tent. And like we were saying earlier, everything with rope rescue or sprat is backed up. So everything has a backup. Every swing potential has a backup. Every lifting line has a backup. So there's lots of ropes, lots of stuff going on.
Yeah.
But yeah, like Justin was saying, that you've got to have some way to lift it and then some way to haul it over. And then the lifting line needs to be able to descend at the right point to land the bucket in the right spot.
Yeah. And it's funny.
ASAP needs to be pointed in the right direction. That was our problem.
Yeah.
Both ASAPs pointing in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
Charles, so it's confusing because you're lifting and yeah.
That's when they went into teaching mode, right?
Right. They went into teaching mode. Stop what you're doing. Something's wrong. Figure it out.
Man.
Yeah.
I hated hearing that.
Yeah. The night before, me and Jamie knew that we had already decided that we were going to be the ones doing the event. So the night before, we stayed up late and practiced setting it all up with our gear and had it all set up. We were positive that we were good to go. And it didn't quite go that way the next day.
We knew the whole system. We had the system set up in the tree. Everything was good except for, so the Petzl ASAP is, if you look at like rope access videos or whatever, if you look at what they're doing, it's a device that trails on the line behind them as they go up and down. If they were to fall, it catches them.
Okay.
Yeah.
A trailing fall arrest, essentially, I think is what you would call it. Yeah.
So Charles and I were at the cabin that night and we laid out with our tree gear, mimicking all this shit we don't have. We're like, okay, this is our rig. This is this or whatever. We basically set up a 3-to-1 on the tree with a Petzl rig and the ASAP backing up the load, So we were able to lift and then switch over to descent, right? Does that make sense? So 2 climbers, 2 trees, and a load being hauled up from one, over a tent, and then down another side.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's what was going on. We have a Petzl ASAP on us, and then we have a Petzl ASAP on our
ASAPs everywhere.
Yeah, on our system as well. And Charles and I both set it up wrong.
Okay.
So once we got the bucket to a certain height, the judges stopped us and they're like, there's a huge like safety thing. I'll give you guys, it was like 2 or 3 minutes to figure it out, right? And I think you figured it out. I couldn't see over to what you were doing, so I didn't realize mine, was wrong too.
So the ASAP on you, that was connected to you or connected to the bucket?
No.
Okay.
The load connected to the load.
Eventually,
apparently there's an arrow on it, and that's supposed to help.
So there is an arrow on it, and I looked at that
arrow on the device.
I was confused which way the arrow was supposed to be pointing.
Right.
It's not as simple as the one that's following you, because you're going up and down a stationary line. This ASAP's going up and down, backwards. So I was thinking that the load needed to be stopped the other way, but it would have free-falled the bucket to the ground. So it was a huge safety issue.
Yeah.
So I figured out mine, and then we kept going.
And I'm not sure if mine was backwards or if I just didn't have the rope captured in the carabiner kind of thing.
I think that might.
It's weird. If you look up an ASAP, you'll know what I'm talking about. We should have just looked it up the night before.
I'll never set one up wrong again. Oh.
But I think another thing we did wrong, and I think it was, my fault, is we lifted it too high. So we increased the fall factor unnecessarily. Right?
Oh, no, that was my fault.
But I think
I was directing. I was like, no, you could go higher.
Yeah.
But we went way too high.
I'm sure
we wasted time.
points for that too, wasting time and increasing the fall factor unnecessarily.
Exactly. Yep.
So that event was a big drag.
Big bust.
Yeah, we really messed up.
Learning.
It's not like it went smooth, but then we had 2 massive safety issues. So
Yeah.
We were lucky that they let us finish it.
Yeah, so we didn't get any points, really. We felt like it went pretty good, but I don't think we got really very many points for that event at all.
It was almost a DQ.
We took
Well, it would have been if it wasn't a training event.
Yeah, we took last in the cross hall. So
great.
Our pickoff event, we took 4th, right? There's 10 teams, so it's all right. And then last in the cross hall. Then after that was a cool little bonus point. Yeah, last.
Wasn't it something?
Then they gave us a chance for some bonus points. They had gear laid out that must have failed inspection or something, and they had us go through and do a gear inspection.
Oh yeah.
That's pretty
cool.
Well,
some of them did. Some of them failed. Others were fine, right? You had to sort out the stuff that was fine versus what was bad. And we did pretty good in that, I thought, right?
We did good in that.
Yeah. You had to explain why you're DQing or whatever. There was like super worn out unisenders. Like
still didn't get us out of last place.
Kimbo.
Yeah,
there's a Kimbo that was all corroded.
Yeah.
The unisender was great though. That thing was like down. It was down to like a little finger on the top bar part.
Yeah, it was like a knife.
It was down to like a centimeter thick at one point. I thought.
Yeah,
that's kind of a cool event because we were talking about going up somebody else's line and using other people's gear in a rescue, and so that's kind of an underrated part of an aerial rescue is being able to look at a piece of gear that's not yours, a foreign piece of gear, and decide, is this something that I can use in this rescue?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And
I guess I haven't really thought about that in the moment gear inspection, which is, I mean, it's more likely than not going to be your own personal gear that you're using in a rescue, or something from a kit, which it either never gets used or which could happen. Somebody might rob something out of the kit and use it in a way that shouldn't be used, or there's always that possibility.
Yeah, or I see a scenario where you're climbing to rescue someone and you want to use some gear off their harness, or even look at their harness, and you don't know what just happened to create a rescue. Did they just cut something, or did the gear fail and that's why they're in this situation? So yeah, I've never really thought about that, but it's a kind of an interesting thing to be thinking about.
Yeah, and I think, you hear it a lot. People are like, I'm not going to take the time to do that in real life, like, get up there and get them down, which is, you probably are, but you train, like we always say, slow is smooth is fast. You train all this stuff so that it's kind of like there when the time comes,
Yeah, no, totally.
Or hopefully it never comes, but yeah.
Well, if it comes, you want to be ready.
Yeah.
So do they, it sounds like they would kind of put a class on and then have an event afterwards.
Yeah.
It's all 3 classes back to back.
Yeah, the classes
and
were
then
right.
The next day they started the competition.
And then it was,
competition. Okay. Yeah. I was kind of wondering if they taught, like, if the individual classes related directly to an event.
I don't think they wanted to make it quite that easy.
Yeah, they weren't doing that, huh?
They had some of that competition was not covered at all in the class. It was new, totally new.
Oh yeah,
stuff. They just had like a couple hours of class and then boom. They had some heavy situations.
Yeah, the team rescue, the system they wanted you to use wasn't covered. But I don't know, we heard whispers, or it was because Dave Stice had put out that video of like learn escape block system that you and I were looking up escape block the night before. And so I guess we can move on to the team rescue.
Okay.
Team rescue scenario. So it was sequestered, right? It was kind of off on its own.
So you were just on scene.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You just walk up and it's go time. You don't get to see it at all. But we figured we'd probably be using a skate block. So we built one with the arborist gear that we have. You know, I think there was like a rigging plate with some pinto pulleys and all sorts of stuff. A skate block is basically kind of like a controlled speed line.
Exactly.
I know when we would set up a controlled speed line in a tree, you know, you'd have your block at the top of the tree with a separate line, maybe dead end above that, and the load is sliding down that line, right? Controlled by the pulley and a friction device.
Two
or
separate
whatever.
lines.
Usually that's how I set it up anyway. But this was one line, a pulley in the tree, basically like a moving rope system attached to the load that slides down. So your anchor was off somewhere where you could tighten it with a 3-to-1 or whatever, you know,
Yeah.
and the rig was our friction device.
Okay.
So we had that kind of built our gear, right? And what was the scenario? A hunter or something?
Caught in the crotch. Yeah, a hunter who had was, you know, in a tree stand or something and slipped or somehow got stuck in a tight union of it was a big leaf maple tree actually. So the patient or victim, whatever, is up about 20 feet or not like crazy high, 25 feet max. And they were stuck pretty well. The dummy was stuck. So you had to physically get them out of there with this skate block system. But we were also kind of looking at it as hey, we need some kind of mechanical advantage system to like lift this person up.
Yeah, we totally added something that didn't need to be there, right? Like
exactly.
The skate block system would have been able to pull them up and out of the crotch on its own.
Yes.
But what I had thought was, remember we did the tree stuff aerial rescue rally and we lifted one of those victims up with the base tie with the mechanical advantage.
Oh yeah.
You know, routed through their chest harness into their rope bridge.
Yeah.
So I thought we would need to lift them out and then put them on the skate block and get them out of the tree.
Oh.
So we took a lot of time setting up a whole system that I don't think needed to be set up at all, you know?
Yeah, totally.
And the dummy was cruising out of the tree when we timed out, I think.
Yeah. Well, and the big hiccup was the fact that we were trying to build this system using all of our own gear when really they had a whole tarp full of gear that we were able to use and incorporate it any way we wanted. But what they really wanted to see was you to use their like over-engineered bomb-proof gear to build this system. And we were basically just approaching it from the wrong angle as far as what their criteria was. I mean, there's an argument to be made that we were approaching it from a pragmatic, this is how we would perform this rescue and we're going to get it done and it would be safe.
Yeah.
Kind of way, right? But it wouldn't have conformed to IRADA. It wouldn't have conformed to any of those standards because, well, I mean, it probably would have, honestly. All the gear that we were using was probably well within their guidelines for how strong something needs to be. But their argument was, if you have something better available, something stronger, you might as well use the stronger piece of gear.
Yeah, exactly. It was like at every turn we would be setting something up and they'd be like, no, wait. Like I would go to do a base tie with a length of rope that I had in my bag. And they're like,
you really want to do that now?
Yeah, exactly.
3/4 sling.
Yeah, they're like, is there something better to be used there?
Is there something? Well, there's this whole pile of anchors over here that we could use.
Yeah.
1/2 inch or 3/4 inch 10X they had, I think, or 5/8 10X.
I think
which obviously is so overblown for what you needed.
I think the reason that they said that we could use our own gear was because there was some Sprat guys coming and those guys wanted to use what they train with. So for me, like if it was all arborist, I think it would have been super clear if they had just said, just use our stuff, you know, create a system out of our stuff. Cause that's what they wanted. They stopped.
I agree.
To use their stuff. And I think the only reason that they said it was okay to use our stuff was because they wanted the Sprat guys to be able to use
Yeah.
that they invested in.
I think that's a good observation. Yeah.
Could be part of their training tactic too, to make you stop and think maybe there is something beefier or better that could be used, even
I've
though
thought about that, but I don't personally think like that was really much of a benefit to me as far as the learning aspect goes. I think I would have rather learned how to incorporate things and like execute it well. That would have been more impactful for me personally. But instead it was like, we don't really know what we need to do. And we just keep getting turned down every time we try to set something up. And we're not understanding why we're getting turned down.
Yeah. It was getting frustrating, man.
Yeah. I think it would have been
for sure.
Pulleys that we were using weren't rated or underrated, but they didn't say they were underrated. I think they would agree with us that they were rated for what we were using them for, but theirs were rated higher.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I can see why, because it sounds like one of the benefits of this was learning the concepts that with what they work with. So I can understand them saying like, hey, I want you to use our gear in order to help you learn these different concepts, other than if you just use tree gear. But it doesn't seem fair if they don't say that to then penalize you if you just use your gear.
Yeah.
But
I think in their defense that it was more of a training, it's training sharpened through competition, I think is the way to put it.
Yeah. Which is an awesome way to do it.
Yeah. But it does suck to like really mess up.
Yeah.
Exposed.
Yeah. That being said, if a big aspect of it is training, you learn more from when you make mistakes than when, if you just do really good doing what you've always done and what you always know, you're probably not going to learn as much from that than if if they actually stop you and dock you and take like you were saying, you're never going to set one of those ASEPs up, set it up wrong again, so there's something to that.
Yeah. If we could do each one over again, we'd be so much better. It's like,
yeah, for sure.
They give us 10 minutes and then, okay, now do it again. Boom, we get it.
That would be a really cool concept for I love the whole, it's a competition, but it's also training, because I learned best that way, but it would be really cool to take it to the next level, have you run through it and have them correct you along the way.
And then do it again.
Once you've been corrected, so you can really cement in these skills you've learned.
Yeah, it'd be totally good. Yeah. But
you could do those.
You have to be there a week.
Yeah. You could do like, I guess, heats, or you each get 2 trials on any one event.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
That'd be great for tree climbing comps in general. Like if you totally whiff the throw ball, right, Dan? Then you just get to try it again. Increase your average.
Yeah, wouldn't that be something? You could do 2 tries and everything.
Yeah.
Or maybe give you a mulligan. So on one event you get a mulligan. So if you just botch the throw ball, then you have to decide, do I want to use my mulligan here? Well, what if I miss a lock on the foot lock? I might want the mulligan on the foot lock, so that'd be interesting.
Yeah.
It would introduce a whole different dynamic. Yeah.
Little strategy.
All right, all of them, but just all right. And then you take your mulligan.
Yeah.
And you mess one up really bad. So you have to stay with the second.
Yeah. Or maybe make your mulligan worth like 5 points or something. So if you go through everything and crush it all and you don't use your mulligan, you get to just apply those extra points.
Yeah. There you go.
Keep this idea for our competition.
Yeah. Me and
James. Yeah. What are you gonna do? What are you planning?
I want to do something here with just some, hit up all you guys obviously and try to have something here because man, we just got back from NAOM and I miss this stuff so much. Like it put the fire under me again, man. Like climbing to it was so much fun. But I want to do something here with a bunch of local people and have like 2 work climbs set up, maybe like a master's tree and then, just a regular work climb. And then I thought like a throw ball, like throw ball games would be fun. Like do, horse with basketball. You know what I'm saying? Where you like call a shot and you hit it. If the other person doesn't hit it, you get a letter. But you do that with throw ball. Could be fun.
That would be fun.
I don't know. Just make something up. Kind of.
I used to play that with a friend of mine all the time. We'd go and play horse.
With throw ball?
Yeah, throw ball horse.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's awesome. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. And then sometimes it get too easy, maybe. And so we do it up a little, like, okay, I'm going to hit the lower one. Then I'm going to flip it up to this one and then into that one. They got to do the same sequence.
Yeah. Nice. So would you have to call it beforehand, or would you
have to call it all before?
Yeah. Perfect. Yeah. I like that.
Yep. You know what I think we should do with throw line? If you could, you have to set a route for the rope, a specific route. Like you have several different crotches that you have to run that line through, and you can only do a throw line from the ground, right? Yeah. So you have multiple throw lines. You have to manipulate, get it swinging so it bounces through another crotch. You could that would take a lot of manipulation.
I did that once. You got to have the right tree. I did that in a Masters once, where I manipulated and then manipulated the other way and then anchored it and then just went up this side and just followed the line. That one went to that bell. Then it went over to this bell. Then it went over to this one. You just kind of followed the line right through the tree.
Wow.
Yeah. But you got to have just the right tree. You got to be able to manipulate that ball around. It's got to be pretty open.
Is that when people say pre-direct? That's what they're talking about, is like
pre-direct. Yeah, probably.
Pre-direct.
I kept hearing that at NAO, pre-direct.
I think that'd be very cool to put into a competition.
Yeah.
I mean, you could do it in the Masters, it sounds like, but I have never been there yet. So,
Well, that's what's good about this Jambo we just went to. Two Masters. Everyone does two Masters as part of just the normal prelims.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I'm bummed I wasn't there.
Two different trees, and they even named the trees. But now we're getting off topic.
Yeah. We'll do one on that next time, or in the future.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because man, North American Open Masters, look it up. That was such a cool event.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing you guys talk about it.
Yeah, because Justin missed out, but you were doing some cool shit.
Yeah.
Hiking
it was worth it. Hiking, lots of hiking.
Yeah. So are you getting the scenario? I know we're kind of talking about it, but we were there, so we can all paint the picture in our head. But are we making sense to?
So far, we've gone through two scenarios, right? We've gone through the three. Okay, so the one where you go up the line,
the pick off,
and then the one where the bucket goes up over the tent and then back down. What's the third one? Which one am I missing?
The hunter stuck in the crotch.
Oh, yep. The hunter stuck in the crotch.
Crosshole. Yeah.
They had like a certain square on the ground that you had to land them in. It wasn't just getting them up and down.
Okay.
You had to bring them over.
Had to direct them to a landing spot.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it was like
we should also mention the fact that they wanted us to set up a guy line for the tree. Because they're like, you're side loading the stem so much, you have to set up a guy line. And that was kind of I was surprised by that. I mean, I think all of us probably wouldn't have hesitated to run that kind of load that low in the tree. But I wouldn't have set a guy line.
The way we set up a controlled speed line, the vectors are much more in favor of that tree than setting up the skate block the way we did. You know what I mean? So it kind of makes more sense to guy it setting up a skate block like that, where look at your pulley at the tree on the stem and all that going over to the anchor, versus when you're opening that up and going down to your porter wrap down the tree or something. It's a little more favorable.
Yeah. Because you're loading along the stem there as well. That's actually seeing most of the load, rather than just like you would with a speed line. A speed line is that kind of like a straight up speed line without a control.
I think it was set that low because, if you put on an event, you don't want anything to happen. I think it was more about getting us to think about the fact that maybe it should be guide back. I think we probably all agree that there was no way that tree was going to have a problem.
Sure.
But
I think their point was you don't know. You might be in a different situation. You should just do it. you know, you're covered no matter what.
Second.
Especially if it's like a tower or something, you know, that
Yeah,
we're not.
tower, any of those things. Boom, just put another guideline in.
Or
Not that hard.
Yeah, you never know when there's a cavity that you can't really tell from the ground. There's a weakness in the stem that you know you don't want to mess with. And plus, if they were teaching about the vector forces, they might have been just trying to find a way to factor that into the competition somehow, you know?
Yeah.
And it makes sense maybe in some heavy rigging, maybe some, you know, times at work we should be doing that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Definitely guide back a fur spar.
Yeah.
Before.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, we probably all guide back dead trees that have a lean, or just
Rooting
trees that have an extreme lean. Before you go to remove them, you guide them.
Yeah.
Because you're like, I can't climb any higher because I'm actually concerned about a failure.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. No, that definitely takes place in rigging situations. You know, with zip lines, it's something I think about. If you're zip lining a big top and someone's really tightening, if you're using machinery to tighten a zip line, you know, real easy for somebody who's running a skid steer to not realize how much they're pulling on that, you know?
Yeah.
And so if it's as simple as if you take your zip line and run it through a pulley and then go back at a 45-degree angle behind you, then you're forcing that energy straight down into the trunk.
Down. Yeah.
You know? So it's little things like that that can make a huge difference on a rigging situation. Yeah. Or we were removing some Ilanthus the last couple days, and you know how Ilanthus is. We and so we were lowering these big chunks of wood down, and it was, you know, tied to this block that was pretty high up. You start thinking about it as the chunks get bigger and bigger, and then we were using the winch off the chipper to pull the stuff over. And that was a perfect example of all of a sudden you're like, I don't know if we really should be doing it. You know, it might be worth just setting it down on the ground and then winching it over. So how many events were at ARC?
There were 3.
Okay.
And I don't know if you guys touched on it, but it was good to put the guy line in because it makes you think about that a little more. Like I just looked at this sketchy fir that if I get the job, I'm definitely guying this tree to be able to rig it out, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
What's that?
Is your guy line gonna have an ASAP?
I'll be climbing with an ASAP. Yeah.
Definitely.
You're gonna bring a crane in so you can be tied in above your head with the crane ASAP on your dorsal. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. So
hey, I don't want to be rude, but do you guys hear a bunch of children in the background? Because
it's all good.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
My son has a friend or two over right now, so
nice.
They're being 11-year-old boys right now.
Yeah, it's all good.
Yeah.
There were 3 preliminary events and then the Masters event, which was awesome. They had a hammock strung up between 2 trees that were, man, how far away?
Apart,
yeah, 100 feet apart.
That might be a small exaggeration.
Yeah.
Wow.
70 feet apart.
Yeah. Those trees were guyed, and the victim was a woman who her boyfriend rigged all this up and then just like pieced out. He just left. And she was drunk and didn't know how to get down. So the masters just walk up blind to that event and it's like go time, you know?
Okay.
And I only caught 1. Dan, you judged them all, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I watched Noel's team, Noel, Mario, Robert Bundy, and Joe Wurtzel, you know, badass climbers. I watched them do it. They timed out. I think they were trying to do a couple different things, and it just ended up not working out for them. What was the method that you saw that worked to get them off, to get the victim out
in
of the
time?
Hammock?
Yeah. They went up and just kind of like what Noel guys were gonna do at the end, you know, they hooked her up to a line from both trees and brought her down that way and had a climber go from both up there to assess her and assess her gear and stuff like that, and bring her down. It was lots of stuff to think about on that one. Noelle's team, they did extra stuff, kind of like we did. They switched over her lines and stuff. That took a while. And
yeah, I think so. 2 separate trees, 2 climbers go up, right? And I think Robert was trying to break into the system that the hammock was on to maybe try to lower the whole thing out.
Okay.
Yeah.
But one of the things to think about is you don't know that gear that was set up, you don't know the condition of it or anything. So it's probably best not to use it at all.
Especially if she's not hurt, she's not bleeding, she's got all the time in the world. If you have the time to replace it, that makes sense.
Yeah. They were able to dialogue with her. And
yeah.
So did they have somebody in the hammock?
So the actor, Tyler, I don't remember his last name, but he was above the dummy, kind of vocalizing and playing the part. It was really funny.
Kind of like
Becca. Yeah, he did a great job.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember Noelle's interaction with her.
Any more beer?
Yeah. Noelle got over to her and he's like, "It smells like marijuana over here." I think at one point he asked her if she had a YouTube channel. I don't know why. It's cracking me up. So 2 climbers up in the different trees, and I think the way they got to him was one climber threw the tail over or a whole nother rope system, and then that climber was able to tie into that and rope walk their way out to him. But that's all I saw. We left after the first one. That's kind of where they got and then timed out. So did they just lift like the cross haul, Dan, and like set them down?
They made their own cross hole stuff, Yeah. And they hooked it to the victim and then lifted it up. And I'm not sure if they released below or not, or if they were able to lift it up to get her out of the hammock and then ease over, release one, take one up and move her over. Yeah. It was interesting. It was fun. It would have been fun to try to do it. It's just the heat of you need to train in it, it'd be nice to be able to, everyone had some confusion. The people who won had done Treepalooza and it was quite similar thing. And so they were kind of used to that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And so it'd be fun to train in it so that when you're on the team, you're like a SWAT team, you know what you're doing. You figure things out. I think that's what happened with Noelle's team, was there was just like 3 different ideas going at the same time, or they were switching around. They were, they weren't focused.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would have been cool to try and do that one.
Which brings up a good point with aerial rescue. Part of the reason why you want to train with your crew is because you want to be on the same page. If something happens, you got to be on that same page and be able to work as a team and kind of figure out who's doing what part of the rescue in advance. That way, when it comes down to it, you're just doing it.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and like Dan was saying, they had like 3 different ideas going on. We always appoint who's going to be in charge if something happens.
Totally.
And who's second in charge in case the person in charge is part of it.
Yeah.
Because I think at the end of the day, when it's a stressful situation, somebody needs to take responsibility. Most of the time, it's pretty obvious who the natural leader is on site. But, if there starts to get an argument, there should definitely be somebody defined in charge that says, nope, we're doing it this way.
Yeah.
That's a lot of wasted time.
On one of the rescue rally videos that we did, someone had a comment saying like, hey, I was in a real life aerial rescue situation. And that's what happened, is everybody was cussing at each other and trying to make their idea the way it's done. And it just slowed it all down, which makes sense because, everyone's freaking out. This is your friend that's in the tree. So everybody's trying to help. But one of the things we do on every pre-job briefing that we do is we assign roles for an aerial rescue. Like you're going to be in charge of the rescue. You're going to be calling 911. You're going to be the kind of the extra person that's, just helping with the rescue and or doing crowd control, or, it depends on how many people you have in the situation. But I think there's a lot of wisdom into kind of pre-planning to whatever level you can,
Yeah.
Well, a lot of times with their rescues, they have enough people or whatnot, but the leader who's in charge isn't doing anything. He's telling everyone what to do. He's like the master planner. You're doing this, you're doing that. Because if you're starting to do something, then you're focused on what you're doing and you're not watching the big picture.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense, having someone sit back. And it's kind of like when I'm training someone that's new, a lot of times I won't be hauling brush or anything. I'll just be kind of sitting back and watching the job. Or even if it's not a training situation, if it's like a super complex job, I'll try to stop for a second and just stand back and just watch where everybody's doing and what they're doing. Because getting that kind of removing yourself and stepping back and getting that perspective, gaining perspective on the situation can go a long way towards helping everything run smooth.
Yeah.
As long as you're not standing back and just sitting there the whole time.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you have the personnel, that might be a good thing to point out in a job,
Yeah.
You're kind of overseeing, you're the rescue supervisor.
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Nice. It sounds like an awesome event.
It was cool.
Sure missed you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know. Dang it.
A ringleader wasn't there.
I felt horrible about it. I had a little time off situation. I thought I had more time off than I did, and it's caused me to miss ARC and then Naom, two just awesome, like the first competitions back after all this, and I was so fired up, and it just didn't work out. So, but let me tell you, seeing the videos and seeing everybody getting into it has got me so fired up. I guarantee I will have the time off next time.
Yeah.
And it'll be budgeted and happening. I got fired up, especially those videos of the neon Naom.
Yeah, the night
ascents was just like next level.
Oh my God.
So much fun.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll definitely go back next year for ARC.
Nice.
That was a fun event.
Yeah. Yeah,
So-
it'd be fun to watch how it might evolve too. I'm sure it's going to evolve.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it even evolved from the previous year, which may have been 2019 or something. We kind of missed a year there with the whole coronavirus thing. It evolved from that because I think that was just individual events. There wasn't a team, but in the Masters things, they put people in teams.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they were also using a live victim. It wasn't a dummy in all those.
Oh, wow.
Interesting.
Like they had a spar pole rescue at the first one where the dummy had like a bag of blood or something and was like, were you there, Dan?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did not like that event. No.
But am I right? It was
Too real.
pole.
Too good an actor.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it was Dan Holiday talking about it, saying, if you're climbing the wrong side of the tree and getting blood all over you, that's a little dock in points, because that's something, you're supposed to think about in a rescue thing, not getting bodily fluids on you, putting on gloves and stuff you're probably not going to think about in the heat of the moment,
Yeah.
I definitely have not thought about that for aerial rescue.
Yeah.
Oh, the blood going everywhere? Oh, yeah, that's potential.
Yeah.
Yep.
Ooh.
Yep.
What else did they do at that one, Dan, if you remember?
Oh, that Sparport one. Well, on that one, it was even more complicated. They had a piece of wood rigged up with a GRCS hanging in the air.
Oh, man.
So first thing you had to do was deal with that piece of wood hanging in the air.
Oh,
You
wow.
gotta get that on the ground and then go up there. And then you got spikes on. So you have to deal with that. You have to get above that person. He's got spikes on. It was it's challenging. I ran out of time.
Did people take the spikes off? That's something we've trained spar rescues.
Some people did. Some people thought of that. Once they got that victim up and on a rope where it was safe, they took the spikes off. I think one person brought spike covers on and put spike covers on the spikes. I mean, how smart is that?
That's but I know we've trained spar rescues and we've had that conversation about whether or not to take the spurs off once, you're there and everything.
Yeah. When I've trained it, I've taken them off in the past, but I was training with live victims. So, and obviously someone's not hurt. So it makes sense to take them off.
Yeah.
I don't know if I would in the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah. Situational too.
Yeah, totally. And it goes back to the whole, how would it change if you were really in the situation compared to when you're training? And you obviously want to train like you're really in the situation, but you don't want to add that risk. And I think it also depends on how badly the person's injured. Is this you have to get them down right now because they've been bleeding out and who knows how long they've been there. And this is, like if they get, obviously you wouldn't want to gaff them, but is it worth risking that?
Yeah.
Because if it's a matter of, seconds, it takes a little bit of time to undo that Velcro and undo that buckle. And I don't know.
Yeah.
It's an interesting thought. I don't know what the right answer is.
Yeah.
Deal with the bleeding, it seems like up there.
Yeah, I guess so.
Bring him to the ground,
Yeah,
your pressure pads and your tourniquet and all that stuff, and deal with him up there.
Yeah, I think that's probably, that's interesting because, and I guess what's the situation? Do you have EMTs on scene? We've done the stop the bleed training. So if you have stop the bleed and you can pack the bandage, if you got a tourniquet, then it's probably take care of it in the tree.
Yeah, that's an awesome training.
Yeah.
But I think we can kind of wrap up our NAOM thing, or ARC, Aerial Rescue Challenge thing, unless anyone has anything else they want to add to it.
Nope.
One of the takeaways, we mentioned how much new gear there was.
Yeah.
When I came away from it, it really helped me with helping new climbers again. It was like a good step back. It's been a while since I've had to deal with new gear.
Oh, yeah.
In a tree and that kind of stuff. And it really made me have a lot more patience and, helping new guys, like thinking to that and how I had no clue which direction that ASAP went. Maybe the gear that we see every day, it helped me be more patient, maybe take that extra second to explain.
Yeah. It can be overwhelming, right? All this stuff.
Yeah.
And I think we even talked about that. We had the ASAPs set up wrong and we're 40 feet up a tree and the dude on the ground could see this tiny little thing.
Yeah.
Versus like we're right next to it and couldn't see it. But if someone put a rope wrench on backwards, I think I could see that from the ground,
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's interesting.
Yeah. Any other takeaways?
Any final thoughts?
A lady had me come look at her trees the other day. She was scared of them.
Yeah.
They were shady.
Oh, man.
Nice.
Snuck that one in there.
Yeah,
Thanks,
Snuck that one in
I
there.
like it. Yeah. Joke of the week.
Awesome.
Nice.
You guys want to do some stories from the field or should we just kind of like wrap it up?
Yeah, if anybody's got a good story they want to share, I don't really have any good stories from the field that are coming to mind, but
I know Justin does. That's kind of why I'm asking, like, what you were up to recently, if you want to talk about it.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So a couple months back, I had the opportunity to go be a part of a giant sequoia cone collection project in just outside of Sequoia National Park. That was on a BLM property, and it was really cool because it was the top of a mountain called Case Mountain. There was a bunch of locked gates to get up there, so we had to get access from BLM for all this stuff, and we were up there for like 4 or 5 days. The project actually went longer, but I was there for 4 or 5 days. And that was just kind of like dipping my toes into the water on that kind of work. And I was just lucky enough to have met somebody and just been able to take the time to go do it when I did get the call. And so then through that, again, I got another opportunity to go down there. And so that was this last weekend. And this project was a bit different. He's the guy I'm working for named Steen, John Steen Company is his company. And they grow trees and then sell trees across the country. A lot of the work they do is actually like little trees that they have in containers that they sell at like the national parks. They sell giant sequoia and giant redwood in some of these national parks gift shops. And then they also have like tree growing kits that they sell through like Walmart and TJ Maxx and like retail locations, right? So that's a lot of what he does. So he has a need for cone. But now he's also working with the national parks. And this particular project was to collect the cone from an area that burned during the Castle Fire, which I believe was last year. There was a grove called Board Camp Grove, and then another grove up the mountain from there called Homer's Nose. Homer's Nose is like a peak, pretty cool granite peak that overlooks this whole area. So the groves burned real bad. And they want to grow these seeds into saplings and then replant. That's the whole project. So I just got to come in for this first part of it, which was great. I got to climb 3 trees in Board Camp Grove, and then we attempted to do another one. I attempted to climb another one on my last day there in Garfield Grove, which was across the valley. And that one had not been burned, but due to some throw line mistakes at the very end of the day, I basically lost my tie-in after like a perfect crossbow shot and everything. So it was really frustrating.
Oh man.
Yeah. So throw line will get you no matter if it's a little tree or a big tree, right? It's out to get you.
Throw line's a fickle mistress.
Yes, it is. One of the most challenging parts of this last trip to board camp is that board camp is actually it's a hike in, like a real good hike in, like 6.5 miles. So we were like just brutalized by the time we were done working in that grove, because we hike in and hike out. And we were kind of thinking, if we have to do this kind of thing again, where it's that kind of access, we're just going to go in and camp, bring in your gear, pack super light, and then you just camp on site and hopefully you can find a water source or something. But yeah, it had me thinking about trying to streamline my gear selection and just keep pack weight down to a minimum, because everybody was real tired by the end of it. And I had too much gear.
Yeah.
I wasn't expecting that kind of hike in. So that was a fun one, but it all worked out great. We got the cone that we needed. And it's going to be an interesting kind of experiment to really see like how well this does. And if it's a good method to kind of like fight climate change, and I mean, just try to help this particular species continue on into perpetuity, because they're amazing. It's unlike anything else when you climb an old tree like that. And I know you guys have had some experience doing that. But me personally, I've only been able to do it in this last year, and I'm super thankful for that opportunity, because it's been kind of life-changing. I just want to, that's the kind of work I want to do all the time if I can, right? So it's like I got a little taste of it, and now it's all I ever want to do, which could be a dangerous pattern. But I'm gonna just keep rolling with it.
Awesome.
Yeah. And you guys, Tim Kovar was down there too. He was working in a different grove.
Cool. Nice.
Yeah, we didn't really hang with him too much. He had a couple people with him on his team, and they were they were doing a little bit of collecting in a different spot. So yeah, it was good stuff. And then we also worked with a group called the Marmot Society. So Steen and then Dr. Anthony Ambrose and Wendy Baxter, I believe she's doctor too, but they made this organization whose kind of goal is to protect the sequoias and kind of spread awareness about it too. And Anthony and Wendy are scientists, so they're actually studying the trees and taking samples. One of the things they're studying is the flow of sap, water movement throughout these trees. So they'll set up monitoring sites at different heights throughout the tree, and they can actually measure the rate of flow in the giant sequoias, and then take that data at different times of the year, take it at different weather events, and hopefully better understand what's happening with these trees.
Did they have a seminar at ATC in Eugene, the training conference?
No, see, I asked about that, but that was somebody else, and I don't remember their names anymore. But I asked that question this weekend when I was with Steen.
Yeah.
Because he was there, that's where I met Steen. But Wendy and Ambrose they're doing similar work, but they were not at that conference. No.
Okay.
Yeah, but they're great. I mean, they just live for being in those trees. They stay out later than everybody else. They'll hike or they'll hike out in the dark if it means they get to hang out longer, and like they're both photographers, take photos of the trees. So it was a very positive experience for me. I'm really grateful to have met a lot of new people, and hopefully, made some lasting friendships and get some more opportunities to go down there. So
sweet.
Yeah.
So you're just loading a duffel bag with cones?
Yeah, in this particular scenario, we couldn't really carry too much out because the hike was so bad. We were basically just going for about a bushel, which is about 60 pounds, a bushel out of each tree. So we pulled about 2 bushels out of board camp. So between the 5 of us, we had to hike all that out with our gear too. So any more than that, it would have been a nightmare.
Yeah, I brought it up because I was like, you're hiking in there with all your gear and then packing cones out too.
Yeah,
man, that's awesome.
Like for reference, when we were at Case Mountain, we did 10 bushels in a couple of days, but that was not a crazy hike in.
Yeah.
So since it's a crazy hike in, are you just being more selective about what you're picking?
Well, that's part of it, but more so it was just there was a goal of overall amount of seedlings per that area. So as long as we had enough seed to cover that, we were fine. So we only needed to pick that much. But for reference, in that grove, in where the fire was hottest, there are whole giants that are just completely missing. They completely burned up. We're talking trees that are 20 foot in diameter, that a few of those burned up completely. There's others that are still standing, 60, 70, 100 feet tall, but it's just a trunk. Everything else is burnt off of it. There's whole craters of stumps that burned out. They really have not had it. There's not a huge history of high intensity or high severity fire in the giant sequoias because they're so resistant to fire. That bark is essentially fire resist or fire, retardant. It's amazing.
Those are trees that are 1,500, 2,000 year old trees. So obviously there hasn't been fire like that in the last 2,000 years. If the tree, is a 2,000 year old.
If those populations are there. Yeah.
Because correct me if I'm wrong, but they're a fire dependent species, right? For propagation.
Yeah. To some extent,
fire dependent.
Yeah.
That heat event, when you have the heat that comes through with the fire, something that's just burning the underbrush, all the cone will open up and then it'll just disperse its seed, a mass dispersal event.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, they've got a lot of seed, so that many chances, like you're going to get a lot of natural regeneration that way. But I think with the heat of the castle fire, there's no way that any of that seed survived, only on the perimeter, which we do see new trees coming up already, but it's only on the perimeters, and everything burns so hot that seed must have just, there's no way any of that seed survived. Leaving a big hole that, unless it's replanted, you're not going to have giant sequoias in there.
Yeah. Wow.
Not in our lifetimes,
Yeah.
So the way I see it is that we're saving these trees for whoever is in the future,
Yep.
If the trees still survive, 1,000, 2,000 years from now, it's just trying to like preserve one of our greatest natural resources, something that just like strikes awe into your heart every time you see those things. And we're losing that kind of thing on this planet. So it's important. It's important work, at least important to me.
Have you seen the photos of them with their root flares like wrapped in space blankets, like tinfoil?
Yeah, they did that with like General Sherman. I think the giant forest grove, because I think one of the fires was coming into there. I can't remember if it's the Windy fire or the KNP complex, but there were two major ones this summer that were. I mean, I think we had like 10% were subjected to severe fire last year, and then it's probably that again that happened this year. So it's really astounding. Like it's freaking everybody out. It's happening faster than we can keep up with, and we don't have the seed banked. People haven't been really keeping on top of that as much as they could have been. So,
and when you're talking 10% of, we've already lost 90% of those trees, so 10% of what's left is a significant number.
Yeah, you mean like since the majority of settling of the West, Yeah, you're probably right. I know there have been a lot of logging events in the giant sequoias, but it was nothing like what happened to the coast redwoods, because giant sequoia was not really very marketable. And the way that wood actually fractures, it fractures in like a cubical pattern. And so just the tree hitting the ground would cause all these little micro fractures, making a lot of the wood basically worthless, unless you could land them uphill really soft or something. So it just, it wasn't worth the work, because it was garbage lumber for a lot of work. Imagine having to cut one of those things down.
Yeah. With what they had too.
Yeah. I have a picture of a giant sequoia in one of the Case Mountain groves that has a face cut by an axe. And so I don't know. I'm guessing like maybe at the latest it happened in the 20s. But the tree has actually compartmentalized and grown over at least a third of that face cut. So it's got new bark, new tissue that's just completely grown over the face cut.
You said you have a picture of it?
I do, yeah. I could send it to you guys. You could like post it on the thing. It's pretty cool. It's really cool. I first saw it and I was like, oh man, it must have been like a wildland firefighter wanted to just like get a giant sequoia under his belt. Oh, this one's dangerous. I got to follow it. And then, the supervisor comes over and he's like, what are you doing? Stop what you're doing right now. But then I look closer and sure enough, it's a double bit axe that cut that thing, and probably, like a misery whip saw on the bottom of it. Yeah, I know. Can you believe it? And that wasn't even a huge one, but probably like 10-foot diameter.
Yeah.
That's what
a small one, right?
Yeah, small one.
That's what I always think about when, you're doing a big removal and the client comes out and is like, oh my God, you guys work hard, huh? My thoughts always like, I don't work hard. The people that were cutting down old growth trees, back in the day, those guys were working hard. The guys on the misery whip, those guys were working,
Indeed. Yeah.
years ago.
Yeah.
40 years ago.
Yeah.
We have it so easy now.
So easy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have any more trips planned or in the works?
Probably next May.
Yeah.
This was really like the very, very end of any kind of window to collect anything. And because of that fire, and then because of some substantial like hot weather events this year, a lot of the cone had already opened up and dried out. So there wasn't much to collect. We were kind of collecting stuff that was younger. It takes a few years on the tree for the cone to really be ideal and like have the most nutritional content in the seed, and also be just kind of ripe or ready to go. The younger stuff hasn't fully developed, so you never know how many viable seeds you're going to get out of that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I'm learning a lot. It's like not something I've ever really studied at all, but
no, that
the more I learn, the more interested I get.
Yeah, it's making me think I want to do an episode on cone collecting, because there's a lot there, and it's such important work with the state of the forests and the state of those trees right now. Collecting those cones could be what, you know, allows generations from now to be able to walk through a sequoia forest.
Yeah. You might ought to see if Steen will come on, because he'll talk your ear off about it.
Cool.
And he's been doing it for years and years. I think he says like he's been in this game for like 35 years or something. Not necessarily specifically collecting, but growing trees, growing redwoods. That's his expertise.
Yeah.
Cool. Anyone else have any cool stories from recent jobs or anything? I can't think of any that I've had.
Nothing that cool.
Nothing that cool. Climbed a couple cool walnuts recently, but nothing like giant sequoias saving forest cool, you know.
Yeah. I think that's a mic drop.
So how about the 1,000 cankers disease? Are you seeing much of that? Because I'm seeing a lot of it.
You know, I've definitely seen a bunch. I thought it was going to hit harder than it did here, you know, probably 5 or 6 years ago when I first started kind of getting tuned into it. It was actually probably a little earlier than that, you know, and it first hit and we were taking out big dead tops. And I don't know exactly why, but recently I haven't had nearly as much 1,000 canker. Now I've had some, you know, like taking out little bits of deadwood, but not like full removals. And we were just, you know, the Walnut Lane off Harlow, there's some big here in Eugene, just gigantic black walnuts down there.
That's weird, but if you're ever in Eugene, go to Walnut, and you're an arborist, go to Walnut Ave, right?
Walnut Lane.
Walnut Lane.
It's like
insane.
Back in the day, that's where the walnut orchard was that whole Harlow neighborhood. So some of the biggest walnut trees around are down there. And so we just got done taking care of all the deadwood and cleaning them out. And there's definitely some deadwood on the ends of some of them. And I did see some little pinholes, and it's hard to tell. You know, there wasn't a lot. You know, if I see a ton of pinholes, then it's like, oh yeah, this is probably 1,000 canker. But I just see 1 or 2 little holes here or there. And I don't know if it's another insect that's attacking the deadwood after it's already died, or if exactly what it is. But it was encouraging because we've been monitoring those trees for a while now. You know, they haven't been in decline in a major way. So hopefully it stays that way.
Good.
Crossed, you know.
Yeah.
It seems like these days there's so many different pests that are attacking the trees, between the bronze birch borer and the pine beetles and everything. It's kind of nice to have one where it's not hitting as hard as we were scared it was going to hit, you know.
I wish I could say the same, but it's definitely worse up here.
You've seen it pretty bad up there?
I've seen it really bad, yeah. So I don't know what the difference might be. Like, it doesn't seem like Eugene and Portland area are very different climate-wise, but maybe it's just been here a little bit longer.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. And I've definitely seen some trees that got hit pretty hard. And maybe it's just by chance that I haven't seen the ones that, you know, maybe somebody else is taking care of them by chance.
They already took them down.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, Jamie, weren't you telling me about one that you guys worked on with Green Tree?
Yeah, and there's, I think, OSU did a study, and there's been good success of, you're not just removing the dead material, right? You want to make sure you're actually cutting into green tissue whenever you're doing the treatment on there. Yeah. So don't just stop at the dead. Keep going till you're into green tissue. And I've seen some walnuts, totally bounce back and look great.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've been working on a few for a couple of years now where I don't know. Some of them are actually sprouting back, but it's just the amount that they've died back. It's like, it's kind of depressing. I just keep cutting more and more out of them, but they really want to keep those trees. So I can't make that decision for them on when to remove it. I can suggest things all the time, or try to be as clear as I can. Like, hey, this is a short-term solution where this tree is not going to win this battle. Like, everything dies, and this one's already starting off like in a pretty bad way. But yeah, this particular situation, they just wanted to keep them.
It's one of the interesting things about our job is we're the experts, but we don't really have final say, Dan, how's the going up in Seattle?
Yeah, no, we don't have those walnuts.
Oh, you don't have them up there?
No, very few walnuts. Unfortunate for us. I wish I could train trees like that and climb trees like that, but there's very few walnuts. Yeah. So.
Well, should we bring it back to aerial rescue and final thoughts kind of thing?
Yes. Yeah. So what were, I guess, Jamie, what were your final thoughts on the ARC?
I'll just say, I said it before in the conversation, is that, in a real life scenario, a lot of people say, like, I'm not going to take the time to do that. I'm just going to get up there and do it. But we train this stuff, so all that stuff is kind of muscle memory or whatever, so you don't freeze up in the situation. And talking to people recently, I realized we don't train aerial rescue enough. So these events are awesome to go to. I mean, if you could get your crew doing it twice a year, like quarterly, like the city does, is awesome. But even like twice a year, I think is huge and doable for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Hopefully, we get to the point where we can start organizing events where multiple people can come to, and we can, I think it's a great way for the arborist community to, connect with each other and help uplift all of each other, the rising tide lifts all boats type of thing.
Yeah, it's fun too.
Yeah,
it's fun.
Charles, what are your final thoughts?
Yeah, I know we touched on it a little bit, but I think my favorite class from ARC was patient assessment.
Yeah.
So, I think, like Jamie was saying, it's an underrated, or it has been underrated as far as the trainings that we've done and been to. And I really appreciated Steve's point of how common sense it was. Like you guys were saying, it's still a thorough patient assessment, but it's very common sense.
Yeah, that was huge.
So yeah, we'll keep training patient assessment and make sure that, I'm really looking forward to next year.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Definitely plan on being back.
Nice.
Let's do that.
Real high quality instructors. Those guys really do good stuff. Veterans.
Not screwing that up again.
Yeah. Yeah. Dan, final thoughts?
Oh, yeah, I really liked the class. I really thought that those instructors were high quality, lots of experience, and so it's nice getting that kind of instructor, really knows what he's doing and has seen a lot, done a lot. And I'm looking forward to some more of that. I'm still debating on whether to take a Sprat class myself. I was thinking I wanted to do it, but that means I'm not doing something else. So
yeah, I know Charles and I were kind of jazzed on doing one. I don't know if you still are or not.
Yeah, I still definitely would be.
Yeah.
It's about finding the time to do it.
Exactly.
And sign up. Once it's signed up, I'm totally there. But
yeah.
There's so many other things on the plate.
Yeah.
They do it in Bend. We'll have to keep an eye out.
Oh, yeah.
Or maybe they probably have classes closer to you, but that's the close one to us anyway.
Right. Yeah, close one would be nice. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Justin?
Oh yeah. I don't think I really have much to add as far as the class goes, but I do want to reiterate just how good it was to be with tree people again, after a long time of not seeing people. So that was probably my biggest takeaway. It was just good to be back. And it sounds like you guys got the same thing at NAOM again. So I'm excited about keeping these things rolling. And when you can make it educational, that's, 2 birds with 1 stone there. So
yeah, we'll get a climb together soon. I know I had one not too long ago and kind of canceled it due to rain, but we'll schedule one, rain or shine, and you can come down and out. Aerial rescue and some work climbs and stuff. Have some fun. Yeah.
Well, hey, Andrew, thank you for not going, because it meant I got to be on this team. So. No, but in all seriousness, yeah, I was looking forward to seeing you there too. I would have probably just got thrown in with some random team. So it was nice to be a part of this. I want to thank all you guys for, putting up with me.
Well, I can't say that I'm happy to help, but like yourself.
We missed you, definitely.
Yeah. Hey, we'll catch you next time.
Yeah.
I think my final thoughts listening to it, a lot of times when I'm training aerial rescue, my thought is, how can I make it as simple as possible? Because, you're kind of like what you're saying, you're trying to use the gear that you have on hand to do the rescue. But I think there's a lot of value in training a really complex situation that might be a little different than what you normally train, because, you're going to be looking at it from a different perspective and hopefully learning something different, and kind of learning something different with the hopes that you never use it. With that, I'll say stay safe and keep an eye on those shady trees.
Shady trees.